Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 11 of the Poems and Stories series. Uh, today is uh, today's story is titled "The Nightingale." Long ago, the palace of the Emperor of China was the most splendid in the world. It was made entirely of porcelain, very costly but so delicate and brittle that one had to take care how one touched it. In the garden were to be seen the most wonderful flowers, and to them silver bells were tied, which sounded so that nobody should pass by without noticing the flowers. The garden extended so far that the gardener himself did not know where the end was. If a man went on and on, he came into a great forest with high trees and deep lakes. The wood extended straight down to the sea, which was blue and deep, and great ships could sail beneath the branches of the trees. In the trees lived a nightingale, which sang so splendidly that even the poor fisherman stopped still and listened when he had gone out at night to throw out his nets. "How beautiful that is," he would say. From all the countries of the world, travelers came to the city of the emperor and admired it, and the palace and the garden. But when they heard the nightingale, they said, "That is the best of all." The travelers told of it when they came home, and the learned men wrote many books about the town, the palace, and the garden. But they did not forget the nightingale, which was placed highest of all. The books went through all the world, and a few of them once came to the emperor. He sat in his golden chair and read and read. "But the nightingale is the best of all," he saw written there. "What's that?" exclaimed the emperor. "I don't know the nightingale at all. Is there such a bird in my empire? And even in my garden? I've never heard of it. To think that I should have to learn such a thing for the first time from books." And thereupon he called his minister, who was a very grand person. "There is said to be a wonderful bird here called a nightingale," said the emperor. "They say it is the best thing in all my great empire. I command that he shall appear this evening and sing before me." "I have never heard him mentioned," said the minister. "I will seek for him." But where was he to be found? The minister ran up and down all the staircases, through halls and passages, but no one that he met had heard of the nightingale. And the minister ran back to the emperor and said that it must be a fable invented by writers of books. "But the book in which I read this," said the emperor, "was sent to me by the high and mighty emperor of Japan, and therefore it cannot be false. I will hear the nightingale. It must be here this evening. If it does not come, all the court shall be trampled upon immediately after supper." Then the minister again ran up and down the staircases and through all the halls and corridors, and half the court ran with him, for the courtiers did not like being trampled upon. At last they met with a poor little girl in the kitchen who said, "The nightingale? I know it well. Yes, it can sing gloriously. Every evening I get leave to carry my poor sick mother the scraps from the table. She lives down by the shore, and when I get back and am tired and rest in the wood, then I hear the nightingale sing." "Little kitchen girl," said the minister, "I will get you a place in the court kitchen with permission to see the emperor dine, if you will but lead us to the nightingale." So they all went into the wood where the nightingale was accustomed to sing. Half the court went forth. When they were in the midst of their journey, a cow began to low. "Oh!" cried the court pages, "now we have it. That shows a wonderful power in so small a creature. I have certainly heard it before." "No, those are cows lowing," said the little kitchen girl. "We are a long way from the place yet." Now the frogs began to croak in the marsh. "Glorious!" said the Chinese court preacher. "Now I hear it. It sounds just like little church bells." "No, those are frogs," said the little kitchen maid. "But now I think we shall hear it soon." And then the nightingale began to sing. "That is it!" exclaimed the little girl. "Listen, listen! Yonder it sits." And she pointed to a little gray bird up in the boughs. "Is it possible?" cried the minister. "I should never have thought it looked like that. How simple it looks! It must certainly have lost its color at seeing such grand people around." "Little nightingale," called the little kitchen maid quite loudly. "Our gracious emperor wishes you to sing before him." "With great pleasure," replied the nightingale, and began to sing most delightfully. "It sounds just like glass bells," said the minister. "It's strange that we should never have heard it before. That bird will be a great success at court." "Shall I sing once more before the emperor?" inquired the nightingale, for he thought the emperor was present. "My excellent little nightingale," said the minister, "I have great pleasure in inviting you to a court festival this evening, when you shall charm his imperial majesty with your beautiful singing." "My song sounds best in the green wood," replied the nightingale. Still he came willingly when he heard that the emperor wished it. The palace was gaily adorned for the coming of the nightingale. In the midst of the great hall where the emperor sat, a golden perch had been placed on which the nightingale was to sit. The whole court was there, and the little kitchen maid had got leave to stand behind the door. All were in full dress, and all looked at the little gray bird, to which the emperor nodded. And the nightingale sang so gloriously that the tears came into the emperor's eyes, and the tears ran down over his cheeks. The emperor was so much pleased that he said the nightingale should have his golden slipper to wear around his neck. But the nightingale declined this with thanks. "I have seen tears in the emperor's eyes. That is the real treasure to me. I am rewarded enough." And then he sang again with a sweet, glorious voice. The nightingale was now to remain at court in a fine cage, with liberty to go out twice every day and once at night. 12 servants were appointed when the nightingale went out, each of whom had a silken string fastened to the bird's legs, which they held very tight. There was really no pleasure in an excursion of that kind. One day the emperor received a large parcel on which was written, "The Nightingale." "There we have a new book about this celebrated bird," said the emperor. It was not a book, however, but a little work of art, contained in a box, a toy nightingale, which would sing like a living one, and was brilliantly ornamented with diamonds, sapphires, and rubies. So soon as the toy bird was wound up, he sang a little song, and then his tail moved up and down and shone with silver and gold. "Now the birds must sing together. What a duet that will be!" cried the courtiers. And so the two birds had to sing together, but the duet did not sound very well, for the real nightingale sang its own way, and the toy bird sang as it had been made to sing. Now the toy bird was to sing alone. It had just as much success as the real one, and then it was much handsomer to look at. It shone like bracelets and breastpins. 33 times over did it sing the same piece, and yet was not tired. The people would gladly have heard it again, but the emperor said that the living nightingale ought to sing something now. But where was he? No one had noticed that he had flown away out of the open window back to the green wood. But the courtiers were well content. "We have the best bird, after all," said they. And so the toy bird had to sing again, and that was the 34th time that they listened to the same piece. And the playmaster praised the bird particularly. Yes, he declared that it was better than a real nightingale, not only with regard to its plumage and with many beautiful diamonds, but inside as well. The real nightingale was banished from the court and empire. The toy bird had its place on a silken cushion close to the emperor's bed, and all the presents it had received, gold and precious stones, were ranged about it. So a whole year went by. The emperor, the court, and all the other Chinese knew every little twitter in the toy bird's song by heart. But just for that reason, it pleased them best. They could sing with it themselves, and they did so. But one evening, when the toy bird was singing its best, and the emperor lay in bed listening to it, something inside the bird said whiz. Something cracked. Whirr. All the wheels ran around, and then the music stopped. The emperor immediately sprang out of bed and caused his physician to be called. But what could he do? Then he sent for a watchmaker, and after a while the bird was put into something like order. But the watchmaker said that it must be carefully treated, for the works were worn. Only once in a year could the bird be allowed to sing, and that was almost too much. Now 5 years had gone by, and a real grief came upon the whole nation. The Chinese were really fond of their emperor, and now he was ill and could not, it was said, live much longer. Cold and pale lay the emperor in his great, gorgeous bed. All about, in the halls and passages, cloth had been laid down so that no footstep could be heard, and therefore it was quiet there, very quiet. But the emperor was not dead yet. Stiff and pale he lay on the gorgeous bed, with the long velvet curtains and the heavy golden tassels. High up, a window stood open, and the moon shone in upon the emperor and the toy bird. The poor emperor could scarcely breathe. It was just as if something lay upon his chest. He opened his eyes, and then he saw that it was Death who sat upon his chest, and had put on his golden crown. He held in one hand the emperor's sword, in the other his beautiful banner, and all around, from among the folds of the splendid velvet curtains, strange heads peered forth, a few very ugly, the rest quite lovely and mild. These were all the emperor's bad and good deeds that stood before him now that death sat upon his heart. "Do you remember this?" whispered the one to the other. "Do you remember that?" And then they told him so much that the perspiration ran from his forehead. "Music! Music! The great Chinese drum!" the emperor cried, "so that I need not hear all they say." The voices continued speaking, and Death nodded to all they said. "Music! Music!" cried the emperor. "You little precious golden bird, sing! Sing! I have given you gold and costly presents. I have even hung my golden slipper around your neck. Sing now! Sing!" But the bird stood still. No one was there to wind him up, and he could not sing without that. But Death continued to stare at the emperor with his great hollow eyes, and it was quiet, fearfully quiet. Then there sounded from the window suddenly the most lovely song. It was the little live nightingale that sat outside on a spray. It had heard of the emperor's sad plight and had come to sing for him of comfort and hope. As it sang, the specters grew paler and paler. The blood ran quickly and more quickly through the emperor's weak limbs. And even Death listened and said, "Go on, little nightingale, go on. But will you give me that splendid golden sword? Will you give me that rich banner? Will you give me the emperor's crown?" And Death gave up each of these treasures for a song, and the nightingale sang on, and it sang of the quiet churchyard where the white roses grow, and where the elder blossoms smell sweet. Then Death felt a longing to see his garden, and floated out of the window in the form of a cold white mist. "Thanks, thanks," said the emperor, "you heavenly little bird. I know you well. I banished you from my country and empire, and yet you have charmed away the evil faces from my couch, and banished death from my heart. How can I reward you?" "You have rewarded me," replied the nightingale. "I have drawn tears from your eyes when I sang for the first time. I shall never forget that. Those are the jewels that rejoice in a singer's heart. But now, sleep, and grow fresh and strong again. I will sing you something." He then sang, and the emperor fell into a sweet slumber. Ah, how mild and refreshing that sleep was! The sun shone upon him through the windows when he awoke, refreshed and restored. Not one of his servants had yet returned, for they all thought he was dead. Only the nightingale still sat beside him and sang. "You must always stay with me," said the emperor. "You shall sing as you please, and I'll break the toy bird into 1,000 pieces." "Not so," replied the nightingale. "It did well as long as it could. Keep it as you have done till now. I cannot build my nest in the palace to dwell in it, but let me come when I feel the wish. Then I will sit in the evening on the spray yonder by the window and sing you something, so that you may be glad and thoughtful at once. I will sing of good and of evil that remains hidden round you or round about you. The little singing bird flies far around, to the poor fisherman, to the peasant's roof, to every one who dwells far away from you and from your court. I will come and sing to you, but one thing you must promise me. Everything, said the emperor. And he stood there in his imperial robes, which he had put on himself, and pressed the sword which was heavy with gold to his heart. One thing I beg of you. Tell no one that you have a little bird who tells you everything. Then it will go all the better. And the nightingale flew away. The servants came in to look at their dead emperor, and yes, there he stood. And the emperor said, "Good morning," by Hans Christian Andersen. Thank you for getting to the end of today's stories. If you have any questions about this book, or you're interested in possibly helping me restore this book to preserve it for future generations, please reach out to me and let me know. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to this channel so that you don't miss any of the rest of the stories throughout this or any of the other books. Thank you so much. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.